Hi again. In this video, we're going to talk about what effective informational writing looks like. So remember, different types of assignments call for different kinds of writing. In your first paper, the rhetorical analysis paper, you did some informational writing in the first paragraph when you told me about, or told the reader about the rhetorical exigence, right? What happened in Flint that led the cartoonist to create the cartoon. The rest of that paper was analytical writing. In the initial research findings paper that you're working on now, the background section is going to be composed of all informational writing. The analysis of op-ed section will be, you guessed it, analytical writing about the opinionated article you chose. And the questions to guide further research section is, you guessed it, just questions. That's pretty easy and something you'll want to knock out at the very end. I've got a separate module page devoted to that. Let's talk about informational writing. As with most things, when it comes to writing, throwing a football, or other art forms, it helps to see someone else doing it to get an idea of what you're supposed to do. So let's take a look at this example together. It'll be fun. Okay, so here's the page. I have a sample from one of the A papers that are in your initial research findings toolbox. And we're going to take a look at this to get an idea for what the informational writing in your background section should look like. So I'm going to go ahead and download it. Okay, so here is the paper. So her topic is the opioid crisis. I don't remember what her subtopic is because, again, that's driven by what is in the contents of the opinionated article. But let's take a look at this. Now, keep in mind, I've only included one paragraph here. She included 3 paragraphs in her background section. The instructions stipulate that you must have at least 2. So I'm assuming that you have already looked at this and hopefully worked to answer some of the questions, to do some of the things, I should say, listed in bold here. If you haven't, I'm going to wait a few seconds so you can pause the video and go ahead and do that so that so you can see, if you get the answers right before we talk about it. Okay, let's count how many in-text citations this paragraph contains. Here, I'll click Enable Editing so I can highlight things. Very good. Here's 1. Here is 2. Why aren't there quotation marks on this? It's because she's using paraphrase. She's explaining the fact in her own words, so she does not need to use quotation marks. However, this distinction between the different types of opioids, this is not common knowledge, right? This is something that most readers do not know. She knew it because she read a source. Which source? This one, right? And of course, that cross-references with an entry on the Works Cited or References page. You can tell this is MLA citation because she doesn't have the date, right? So it's going to be a Works Cited, not a References page. Let's see. Here's another in-text citation. Why isn't this in parentheses? Well, she used a signal phrase here to let the reader know that the fact that is contained in this sentence is from the Heidi Spleet article. Now, interestingly enough, remember, sample papers are not perfect, right? And so this is an error, right? Because you don't need the parenthetical citation if you have already included the last name of the source in the same sentence as the fact. So we can help her with this, right? We'll just go ahead and do that. This one here you can see is handled correctly. She includes the author's last name, so there's no need for a parenthetical at the end. How many in-text citations were there? Let's see. 1, 2, 3 different sources. Oh, and don't forget Hopkins Medicine. That's 4 different sources and about 5 different citations. So let's just say lots. Did you find her opinion anywhere in there? Does she say how she feels about the opioid crisis? Does she use personal examples of people she might have met that have opioid addiction problems? No. Because we're not looking for opinion in the background section. Right? We're looking for facts about the topic. Too many times I see students substituting their opinion for facts about the topic because they have neglected to read the source material that they included on the works cited page. This student, though, did a great job. There is no opinion here. It's all pertinent facts from sources, fluently embedded using either paraphrase or direct quotes. Check out the Prezi about that is included later on in the module contents this week. All right, let's scroll down and look at what not to do, because this is what to do. If you have 3 paragraphs that look like this, lots of in-text citations, again, you're not going to use the same facts she is because you're potentially going to have a different subtopic. Now, of course, these facts here are about the main topic, really, right? Because they're in it's her first paragraph. It's in the later paragraphs where she drills down into the specifics about the subtopic, which I believe for that student has to do with the potential for addiction in adolescents who are prescribed opioids. But you'll have to read the sample paper to check me on that one. Okay, so here is the example of what not to do. I would never mock student writing, right? And so this is my own writing. I created it, and let me tell you, it took me about 90 seconds, right? And that's because none of this information comes from sources. None of it. It's all common knowledge or opinion, right? It's all just stuff I made up off the top of my head. Now, I will tell you, I do get papers like this. Not a lot, but I do get papers like this, and they fail, right? So I don't want you to do this, right? If you're reading the sources and delivering facts from them, that you're going to do fine, right? But we need to talk about how problematic this is, right? So let's look at why this is so bad instead of me just telling you. Find the facts that come from sources. There's no facts from sources. The vast majority of people you run into in the community or on Google Meet or on video, they know all these things already. Right? You're not sharing any new information with the reader. Okay, next part. So find the ideas that come from common knowledge or personal experience that should not be here. All right, so we'll find those things and then we'll talk about why they shouldn't be here. So this is common knowledge, this part here. These are things most people already know about drug abuse. You didn't need to read a source to know that, right? Then we've got this. This is what you call personal experience, right? You could imagine someone who's had this experience and then they decide to put it in the paper, right? The problem with this is that when you're writing for an academic reader, especially in a background section like this, you're supposed to deliver pertinent facts that the reader did not already know, not facts from your personal experience, right? Academic readers, like I care about you as a person, of course I do, right? But personal experience does not belong in academic writing, generally ever really that I can think of, right? And so these things should not belong here, and they actually, they hurt your credibility with the reader. Find the informal language that should not be here, right? Okay, because again, academic readers expect a certain kind of word choice. They don't want to see slang. They don't want to see figures of speech. They want to see a lot of precision. When you look at this is very informal, right? To directly ask a reader a question like that, this is very informal. It is not something an academic reader expects. It will really hurt your credibility. You should not ask questions in the background section. It is your job to answer the questions the reader may have. Now, certainly in the questions to guide further research section, we're interested in questions that you still have after all the work you've done in the other sections. There's a separate module page that talks about that. Okay, find the opinionated writing that should not be here. This is all opinionated writing, right? I have often found that when students fail to read the source material, they substitute opinionated writing for information from sources, right? Because anyone can have an opinion. It doesn't have to be informed to be an opinion, right? But my job as the instructor is to ensure that you understand how to access source materials, right? So that you can learn more about the topic as opposed to just developing an opinion in a vacuum, right? There should not be any opinionated writing in the background section. or in the analysis of op-ed section, or in the questions section. There should not be any opinionated writing in this paper whatsoever. If I find it, I will strike through it and just take points off for it. Okay, because again, it's not what readers expect. And believe me, it is useful to learn other types of writing besides just opinionated writing, right? And as you'll see when we look at academic journals, there's not much in the way of opinionated writing in those, right? So I'm teaching you things that you can use, hopefully. This last one here, you can tell I turned it into a three-pronged thesis, right? Which is like my public enemy number one, right? Three-pronged theses are, this is an outdated teaching tool. I worked at a hospital for 12 years. I probably wrote 20,000 emails. I wrote reports. I wrote analyses. I was never asked for a three-pronged thesis. I defy you to find someone who in their professional career, regardless of what it is, has ever been asked to use a three-pronged thesis, right? And I don't believe in teaching you to use things that you won't use, so you should never use a three-pronged thesis in my class, right? So again, when I see these things, I panic because I think, oh God, this is someone who's not read any of the module materials and they're trying to turn this into a paper that they have written for 10 other English classes before this one. Please, please, please don't do that, right? Because I don't want to see you do poorly. Oh, one more example of informal language is the use of first person there. You never want to use I statements when you are writing for an academic reader, right? One exception is going to be in the next big paper, the annotated bibliography, but that's because I'm the only reader for that one. We'll talk more about that another day, but you should not have any I statements anywhere in the initial research findings paper. Guess the grade writing like this receives, no matter how many paragraphs of it there are. Yes, it will fail. Please note, there are no grammatical errors here. At least I don't think they are. There are. I wrote it in a hurry. You might be able to find one. But the point is, it's fairly well written, but it doesn't follow any of the assignment directions, doesn't deliver any pertinent facts, and so it must fail, right? And you'll see when you look at the rubric, there's different points assigned to each of the three sections, right? Background, analysis of opinion, of op-ed, pardon me, and questions to guide further research. There's points attached to each section, right? And if you're not delivering what's required in the section, then it's not going to score well, right? So again, that's the reason why I'm including this, is because I want to be sure you understand what is expected in terms of informational writing, what not to do, and what to do. That's all I got. Thanks for watching the video. Enjoy the rest of your day.